Showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
I want to welcome you guys out today to episode 145 of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. I'm Chris Hollifield. I am your host. Welcome to the show. You can find the website for the podcast at iamsaltlake.com. It's where you can dig through that back catalog, check out some of the previous conversations, connect with me on Facebook and Twitter, iTunes, Stitcher Radio. You can also find the podcast on Mediocre Radio Network.com. This episode, I'm really honored to sit down with Kerri Cronk from Fox 13. She's on Good Day, Utah. She's one of the anchors over there. Had a really great conversation with her. She came over to my apartment. We sat down, we chatted, and I'm really excited to play that conversation for you here in just a second. Of course, I want to give some love to our sponsor for the show. Sponsor is the Urban Lounge, located right in downtown Salt Lake City. You can find their website, theurbanloungeslc.com. That's where you can find a complete lineup of all the bands that are going to be coming there. You could buy tickets, connect with them on Facebook and Twitter. Again, that website, theurbanloungeslc.com, and let them know you've heard about them on the I Am Salt Lake podcast. Give them some love. Make sure you're following them on Twitter for up-to-date information of bands that are going to be coming there in the near future. Hey, before I jump into the conversation, I want to tell you guys about this great new program that's come to Salt Lake City. It's called Lift. If you're not familiar with it, you might have heard about it. I know the Geek Show podcast talked a little bit about it in a recent episode. Other outlets here locally have talked about it. It's a great ride-sharing program. They're not really, they're a taxi cab, but they're not. They're a peer-to-peer ride-sharing passenger request program. Pretty much, if you haven't taken a Lyft, I highly recommend you do it. You just download an app in your app store. You can have an Android phone, iPhone. It doesn't matter. You download it. You can see what drivers are in your area. You request a pickup. They come pick you up. I mean, it costs a lot less than your traditional cab service. I actually have a code that I'm going to give you guys here, and it will give you $25 off of your first ride on Lyft. That code is Chris35819. Enter in that code before your first Lyft ride, and you'll get a free ride up to $25. Give it a try. I mean, at least try it one time. It's a lot of fun. The Lyft drivers are great, friendly people. It's a fun way to get around downtown Salt Lake. It's a fun way to get around, all over Salt Lake, really. Again, you can find out more about this program at Lyft.com. Just search for Lyft. That's Lyft. Can't recommend it enough. You're going to get a ride a lot quicker. Sometimes you can get a Lyft driver in as quick as 3 to 5 minutes. It beats the heck out of waiting and getting that busy signal for a taxi cab after a night on the town, or just to get to work. Give it a try. Lyft, support this service. This is a great asset to Salt Lake City. Didn't really mean to get on a big tangent about Lyft. I'm just really stoked that it came to Salt Lake. It's been here for about 3 weeks. I believe it started the weekend of the last Comic-Con, and it's been going strong. And I know a lot of people have been using it, including myself. And like I said, you can't beat that service that they give. Really great, friendly people. You just rate the driver, you rate the passenger. You see pictures. It's like a social networking site, really. But you get a ride and you get to meet some cool people here in Salt Lake City. I think that's going to about do it for the introduction. Like I said, Kerri Cronk came over to my apartment. We sat down, we chatted. I had a great conversation with her. So join me now. As I sit down, I talk to Kerri from Fox 13 News, and we get to know her a little bit better. You're on Fox 13.
Yes.
When can people even watch you? When are you on? What are you?
Wow, it's a marathon show,
It's a marathon show.
We're on a long time. The show itself actually runs from 4:30 a.m. to 9 a.m.
Okay.
But I don't start until 5:30. So Tamara Vaifanua is on that first hour. And so I'm on the air from 5:30 to 9, and then again from 11 to 12:30. So I do 5 hours total of news a day.
I just figured get that out of the way, for people listening when they can find you on TV.
It's hard not to find me.
Yeah, I'm honored to sit down with you and chat. I've had Ben on the show from Fox. I've had Brett on the show from Fox, and now I get a chance to let Salt Lake get to know Kerri a little bit and find out kind of your story on how you got to where you're at today, and how long have you been at Fox, if you don't mind me asking?
It'll be 21 years in October.
Where did you grow up? Like, did you grow up here in Utah? Or let's get a little bit of your backstory, kind of where you come from.
I consider Utah my home, and I did go to high school here, and then I went to college here, but I grew up in Houston, Texas, in the Sugar Land area.
And when did you move from Houston to Utah then?
Well, my parents divorced and I went back and forth. It was one of those things. So, I went to high school at John Foster Dulles High, and I also went to Orem High, and I really spent more time in Utah than Texas as far as high school. So I graduated from Orem High. So did Governor Gary Herbert.
Yeah. Well, no, I spent many years down in Utah County
did
myself.
You really?
I moved from Southern California to Provo when I was 16. So 20 years ago, okay. I moved to Provo. I still have family down there. My mom lives down there, and brother and sister, and so Utah County. So that was probably a bit of a culture shock from Texas.
Sure, but when you're,
you were young.
I was young. Yeah.
Yeah. And so as a young child, did you always, when you were a kid, we all had this idea in our head of what we wanted to be when we were an adult, what we wanted to be when we grew up. Did you always have an interest in television?
No.
Or what did you want to be when you were a young child?
I wanted to be a teacher.
You wanted to be a teacher.
Did.
Did you always want to be a teacher? Did you go to school to be a teacher? Or where did you go to school, if you don't mind? I
graduated from BYU.
So you went to BYU. Mm-hmm. And you graduated from BYU down in Provo, I'm assuming, the Provo BYU. Wow, man, everybody goes to BYU, it seems like.
Really? I think most people are surprised when I tell them that I graduated from BYU.
Did you like going to BYU?
Yeah, I did.
Was it enjoyable? Was it a tough school to go to? You always hear those stories of, how it's a tough school to go to, the rules and all of that.
Well, it's changed a lot. It was not as strict when I went there. I think now you have to be in good standing and attend so many church meetings, I think.
Okay.
And it wasn't that way when I went there. I'm not actually sure about that, but I think it's gotten a little stricter. And since I only went to college there, I don't have another college experience to compare it to. So
exactly.
Yeah, it was
so
great.
it was a great school.
Yeah.
What did you go to school for? Communications. Mm-hmm. And were you going at what point did you decide, okay, I want to do something in television? Was it at school? Was it before you went to BYU? At what point?
I graduated and I got married. And
did you get married down in Provo?
I didn't.
Did you find your husband at BYU?
Went to the U.
He went to the U.
Mixed marriage.
There's rivalry there.
Yeah. In fact, we're season ticket holders to the U, and I honestly cheer.
Okay. Well, you saved yourself
people
there.
Are going to be. Wait a minute.
No, you saved.
But my son loves BYU.
Well, no, BYU is a good school.
Oh, it is. It's a very good school.
It's a great.
Yeah.
University.
I'm proud that I graduated from BYU.
So you met your husband, or you got married,
and yeah, we moved to Lubbock, Texas, because my husband is a pilot and he was in the Air Force, and we moved down to Reese Air Force Base. And so Lubbock turned out to be a small television market, and I thought, all right, I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot in Lubbock, Texas, and that's what I did.
And you gave television a shot?
Yes.
What did you do?
Reporter for KCBD in Lubbock, Texas.
Your very first reporting job.
Very first reporting job.
Did you do anything with any newspapers at BYU of any sort of writing?
I wrote for the paper.
Okay, so you had a little bit of experience, obviously, doing that with communications and stuff. So you were a reporter. Mm-hmm. Did you like it? Was it fun?
Yeah, I liked it.
You must have enjoyed yourself,
Did you ever see broadcast news where the guy's sweating bullets in the newsroom trying to get something on the air?
Okay.
Did you ever see that movie?
It's
pretty old.
I might have. So is that's how it was for you? You were
honestly, that's how it was at times. We did everything. So back then,
how big of a town or city is Lubbock?
There's nothing there, but Reese Air Force Base and Texas Tech. But the funny thing is people there consider Lubbock the big town because there's Floydada and all these little tiny towns, and Lubbock actually had a mall. So people would come in from Odessa and all these other little towns, and but it wasn't big.
So what kind of news were you reporting? Like what is some of the stories that you probably remember like at that time?
Oh my gosh, they're embarrassing because anytime an actual real serious news story happened, they gave it to the veteran reporter, which was not me. I mean, I was making $6 an hour and that was my first TV job. And, so they actually sent me out to, they sent me out to an old folks home and they wanted me to cover the cotton picking contest at the old folks home, which turned out to be, they were gluing cotton balls to, poster board. And honestly, I had to make a fun story out of that experience.
Yeah. So you had you probably get thrown into stories like that though all the time where it's like you don't know what you're going to face. You just kind of get there and you're like, okay, this is what I got to do.
Oh yeah. Well, down there, but it's learning, you're just trying to, and honestly, it's a good foundation for what comes later because, good storytelling is kind of taking something and making it interesting to a lot of people. So it was a good experience. I never covered anything important. That's what I'm telling you that in my whole time there, but and how long were you with that? Just a little over a year.
A little over a year.
That's it. Yeah.
And then did you come back to Utah then after that? And was it for Fox then? Is that what brought you back to?
No, I didn't have a job.
You didn't have a job.
And I probably wouldn't have left Lubbock, Texas that early. I needed more training, more experience. But again, it was my husband's job. We came back to Utah. He had a commitment to the Utah Air National Guard. So we moved here and then I just set about trying to find a job.
And you both have family here, right? So that's kind of what brought you back to Utah then?
I did. He didn't. He had a commitment to the Utah Air National Guard.
Okay.
So he was flying KC-135s, the big air refuelers. And so out here at the Salt Lake International Airport, the guard base is right next to it. So
I gotcha.
We were moving to Utah for that.
So you come back to Utah, you don't have a job. Did you just kind of start applying then at different news stations?
Yes.
Or what? How did that work out for you to
It was tough.
Where did you go then from there?
I worked for Channel 2 for just a very short time.
And what did you do with Channel 2?
Behind the scenes, field producer, Susan Furness, and Terry Wood. Do you remember those names?
The names ring a bell.
Yeah.
Older names in the news world.
Yes. So I worked for Susan and I produced, it was a series piece. And I think the one I did for Susan was called The Power of Prayer. And we were looking at, whether prayer really works. And I remember we were using, there was someone, Larry Dossey, that was the name. And he was having focus groups that would pray for plants and then looking at the reaction to what happened to these plants. So trying to take, instead of using people, plants to see if the power of prayer worked for praying for plants. But anyway, that was the story.
So Channel 2, you must have been burned out. Did you ever get burned out of it? Did you ever just say, well, maybe this isn't for me, maybe news reporting, or were you always enjoying yourself? Did you always, how did you keep yourself motivated to keep going and staying in that field, I guess?
Well, I didn't get burned out. I certainly wasn't burned out in those early years. I was really motivated.
Excited.
Yeah.
But what kept you excited?
Well, because I hadn't gotten the job I wanted yet. So I was still, paying my dues.
And what job were you after?
I didn't know. Just wanted to, I was behind the scenes at Channel 2. I knew I wanted to be on the air. I wanted to get back on the air reporting.
Okay.
And when I got on at Fox, I was hired weekends. So, and I didn't want to just do weekends. I wanted to do something more than weekends. So it just kind of went about.
So you didn't obviously get hired right on as a news anchor.
No.
At Fox.
No. And you can these days.
You can.
It's changed.
Why can you now versus then?
Well, now it's so splintered, what's out there. People don't even understand. Young people, my kids, I don't think they know the difference sometimes between their, what's on my iPad, what's on the television, what's on their computer. It's all the same. Mm-hmm. So, there's just so much more competition out there. It's so fragmented. When I got into TV, Fox was kind of a newcomer. You had the three big networks, ABC, CBS, you know what I mean? And then Fox came along and that was a fourth, option. And then it just expanded and, cable and
it blew up.
It blew up.
Yeah. Do you think that like social media, the Facebook and Twitter and all of that have kind of, back to how you said even your kids, the way we take in the news, the way we find out about news, the way we even just consume it, do you think that that's played an effect on regular, just good old fashioned watch the news at 6, and see what's going on? I mean, you have to really be everywhere. Do you think that like Facebook and Twitter has ruined news at all?
Oh, I wouldn't say it's
not
news.
Ruined. Maybe isn't the best.
Just expanded your option for getting it, but I guess
it's almost like news gets announced earlier. Almost, you find out about stuff before, like you might even be able to.
Oh, I see what
it.
you're saying. Sure, it's on Twitter first, right?
Yeah,
before
Like I swear, like when Michael Jackson died, it was posted all over Twitter within almost seconds before even any news stations were able to get.
No, you're right.
Get to it.
But I think what's the next thing that person's doing who sees it on Twitter? They're immediately they want to see video or pictures or live reports of what's going on. So then they're turning on their television set or trying to find, someone reporting on it. I think if it weren't for local news, there's no way really you can't watch CNN for Utah,
the cable channel
for Utah, right, and get what's going on in your own backyard.
And that's kind of actually it's funny you brought that up because Brett mentioned the same thing when I talked to him, kind of to find out about you can pull up an app, but you're not getting that local feel and that local news and what's going on a local level as you would with a local report. So back to Fox 13, then you started on weekends. You were a reporter or like a weekend reporter.
That's
or
it.
That weekend, like just kind of the same thing you were doing in Texas then?
No, we had more news here.
You had more news.
Thankfully, we had more news.
and so that was 21 years ago?
Yes.
21 years ago.
In 93.
93, wow.
So
and
not quite 21 years, but close.
So when did you get, like, how long did it take to get to where you're at then today? Like, I mean, what were the steps that, I mean, maybe that's a very quick jump in questions.
Well,
I'm sure there's a lot in between there, maybe that you did, but like to be a news anchor, like what got you there? Just moving up.
Yeah. Just the opportunities would come up. I was weekend anchor first. And I was also, and then reporting during the week. But when I had my kids, I cut back to just part-time. And all I did was anchor the weekends. And I did that for about 5 years before I came back to work full-time again. So, and that was the only time that I wasn't full-time. Was when I had both my boys.
What do you think makes us like a successful news anchor?
I think you have to be nosy.
Nosy. And what do you mean by that? Just kind of...
Well, I mean... I was always, I remember a teacher saying once if you're the type of person that is driving down the freeway and you see a bunch of police or something off to the side, if you're that person who kind of slows down to take a look and you want to know what's going on, the news business is probably a good place for you. You're just, every day is different. Every day there's a new story and, you're just, I mean, if you're a little bit nosy, you probably love the news business. Nosy in a good way.
What would you say the hardest part about your job is?
The hardest part, I know exactly what the hardest part for me, it was life-changing, obviously when I had kids and before I had kids, I'd report on stories and, of course they're impactful, but it was different once I had children. I remember that it would be the only time that I ever thought about getting out because there was a terrible car accident. This car had gone off the side of the road. And the video we had that never aired on television because it was just too graphic was this firefighter who had gone down to rescue. The woman was rescued from the car, but they didn't know that there was a baby in the back seat. It was canal water and it was murky. And by the time they found the baby, it had been quite some time, so the baby didn't make it. And we had this video of a firefighter carrying the car seat with this little baby up the side of the hill of this, or, up the banks from this canal. And her little legs were, bobbing as he was running and carrying this baby up the side, of the hill. And
were you there live on the scene?
I wasn't live. No. I just saw the video back at the station.
Yeah.
And then when we had to do that story, it was the first time that news really hit home. I don't know how else to describe it. Just it's something different when you're a parent. And so all of a sudden stories that were about kids, and I just thought, oh, this is depressing. And I had to kind of tell myself, it took me a little while to remember that a lot of these things that happen, because I'm in the business of bad news.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sure it gets tough. Yeah.
And so I had to kind of tell myself, most of these things are isolated events. This isn't happening right and left. And you know what I'm saying? Like these are isolated events, and we're picking things out of a giant population, of a giant world. And it's not all bad out there, but it took me a little while to kind of get over. Just stories really affected me for a little while. Just,
What do you say, like when people say, oh, I don't watch the news, it's all negative?
It kind of is.
Yeah.
And
because, I mean, that story kind of does remind me of that, where it's like, gosh, you watch that and you just get so depressed. It's like, do I to keep watching this?
Right. We try and put a lot of things in there besides, negative, bad news. I mean, obviously, that between politics and trying to be informative and infotainment, entertainment and all that kind of stuff. But there's a big debate about that. Are we force feeding people this stuff, or are we just, a mirror of what society wants?
But don't you think it's good, even if it's not, say, positive news, it's good to know what's going on in your local area. It's good to know what's happening, car accident wise, or houses burning down, or I think it's important to know what's going on in your local community.
To know what's going on.
What's been the most rewarding thing, like with being involved with working with like Fox or the news in general?
It's rewarding when you see a news story make a difference, or a story that creates awareness about something that a lot of people didn't know about, and maybe they were able to fix or change something in their life that helped them in some way from a news story. I figured out just I wasn't putting in my car seat the right way, and I know that's crazy, but I found out from a news story that I wasn't putting in my car seat the right way.
Yeah.
Things like that, simple little things. Those things are all important. But I think it's just, it's just been an interesting ride.
Yeah.
People say if you go after the job you love, then it won't feel like work. And I really believe that. Not that it doesn't feel like work a lot.
Well, yeah, I'm sure there's days that you don't want to go in, but would you say that you really ultimately landed your dream job?
Definitely. I would say I landed my dream job.
And a lot of people aren't so lucky.
Yeah. I never, it's funny, Chris, I never cared about, there are people that this is more of a stepping stone for them. So they want to end up in one of the bigger markets, LA or New York or somewhere. They've got, different ambitions, but I never cared. This was it. This is where I wanted to be. I have family here. I love Utah. This was it. So
you see yourself kind of
I see myself staying here. Yeah, I don't want to go anywhere.
Well,
I shouldn't say that with my bosses are listening.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
That's not going to help me in negotiations.
No. Well, absolutely. But it is. A lot of people don't understand. Salt Lake is a beautiful place. People don't realize how lucky they are to live here. There's so many nice things. Granted, there's things that are kind of, it's Utah, but that's that way anywhere. Is there any like embarrassing stories? Like
I have too many.
Live,
geez,
like, because especially you're live.
Yes.
Is there any kind of delay of any sort when it's live? Is there like a 5-second, you hear that like.
You don't know how many times I've wished there was a delay.
Yeah.
No, there's no delay. And I have so many embarrassing stories because.
Well, let's hear a few of them.
Okay, I'll tell you. I'm on the air 5 hours a day. So I think there's probably at least once a day I'm thinking, why did I say that? But
literally once a day.
Literally. We do a lot with our best friends. We do a segment called, Best Friends, and we have a pet on. And there was one week where we always say the same thing. It's time to meet this week's Fox best friend. And it's amazing what just changing one word can do to the entire meaning of what you just said. And so I said, hey, it's time to eat this week's Fox best friend, which happened to be a bunny. So instead of meat, I said eat. And
it's time to eat this week's bunny, right?
It's time to eat this week's Fox best friend. It happened to be a bunny, and we all laughed about it, and it was fine. And the bunny, no, we didn't eat the bunny, and we got the bunny a good home. I also have said, what did I say? I said the airport had installed new boob detectors. I meant bomb detectors. That one was embarrassing.
Have you ever let, I'm sure you've seen Anchorman, right? Have you ever let any profanities slip out?
No, I haven't had any profanities slip out. We have had, I think Damon said Salt Lake City, but I don't, I'm not supposed to swear on the air here, but
you could swear here fine. That's fine. Say, you know what I mean? We're not regulated by the FCC here.
Well, I think he said Salt Lake Shitty.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was funny.
Sometimes people don't catch that right away or obviously you guys caught it. Yeah.
Well, what can you do? So we just laughed and apologized.
Is that kind of what you have to do? I mean, it's like, okay, make a human error. It's not like...
Oh, yeah. You know what? And in fact, I think people don't mind. They'd rather know you're human and not perfect. I think about Princess Diana and the Queen of England. Everyone loved Princess Diana. She had an eating disorder. She was insecure and all these other things. And people gravitated to her versus the queen that was proper and never did anything. You know what I mean? That type of thing. I think being human kind of endears you.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of even what I try to do with this show is show, you know what, you're just a normal person. Mm-hmm. You do what you do, but I think a lot of times we see these people and we're like, wow, my gosh, they're on the news or they're on the radio or they're, what a musician or whatever. And it's like you find out a little bit about their story and you're like, wow, they're a pretty cool person. They're a pretty cool person. What would you recommend? Obviously you've seen journalism and reporting and all of that change through the years. Let's say somebody was listening that wanted to get involved. I don't know, in the news, what steps would you recommend them to take? Is there any recommendations?
Yeah. I think you do have to be driven. You have to really want it. You have to like to write. I think there are a lot of people that want to get into the business thinking it's more like an actor or actress type of thing. And there's a lot of writing and you have to love to write and you have to love to tell stories and you have to, you do have to pay your dues. I think you're not a good anchor unless you've been a good reporter, because being out in the field and covering all these different stories, all of that prepares you for then sitting at the desk and taking on this new role. And I think sometimes people would like to take a shortcut, especially if their goal is to maybe become an anchor. And I see why you'd want to do that. Because for me, the reporting honestly is more fun. You're out seeing people. Sometimes Dan and I feel like we're in this cave. We don't have any windows. We don't get out and see people. We're stuck at the anchor desk. Reporting's more fun. But the problem is your schedule is crazy. And you can be on one story and maybe your day's almost done and all of a sudden there's breaking news and they're sending you somewhere else and really your life becomes the job. And at least with anchoring, I think for me, I have more of a schedule that I can count on. I do have to stay, a lot of times we'll have a press conference or something we're going to carry live and I'll stay. But for the most part, I have a regular schedule. And that's nice at, being a mom and having kids.
Imagine, yeah.
And that's why I like doing the mornings, because I'm home in the evenings and I might have my afternoons and I can still go to my kid's soccer game and be available on the weekends. But, yeah, so in the beginning, it's a little rough, but all of that, if you really want to be in the news business, really prepares you for that job later.
Do you think a lot of people get discouraged in the beginning, just doing little reporting jobs or little reporting things, and they're like, oh man, this isn't happening for me. They throw the towel in. You see that a lot probably in your business.
Oh, I do. And especially now, I think sometimes, like I said, I think people just expect to get that
instant
dream job
gratification.
Instantly be hired to do, have a huge salary and be hired to be an anchor and, and just get on the air right away.
You talk about being a mom. What do you enjoy doing in your free time?
I have two
hobbies
boys.
and interests besides being on the news.
Yeah. Well, I absolutely love hiking. I love the outdoors. I'm a road biker, so I cyclist, and I road bike, and I love that. And my boys are really, really active, and so we ski and they snowboard, ski. They're much better than me. So
do you get out and ski and snowboard or just ski?
No, I don't snowboard.
You don't snowboard,
I'm not a very good skier, but I ski.
So with summer coming up, do you have anything you're looking forward to? With summer I mean, it's kind of here, I guess.
Yeah, we love the beach. We usually take a trip. My sister lives in San Diego, so we usually go try and crash at her place.
Yeah.
And spend some time at the beach. But I mean, honestly, I love Utah in the summer. So I bike a lot in the summer, and we go camping and hiking. We've done a lot of hikes. For my 20th wedding anniversary, my husband and I climbed Kilimanjaro.
Wow.
And we'd really, next year, would love to go to base camp at Everest. So that's kind of we're trying to figure out.
So you're
if that's
really
possible.
outdoorsy person. I wouldn't have guessed that from you.
Really?
I don't know. But again, I don't know much about you. So that's why I'm here.
So I love the outdoors.
Let's say somebody was visiting Utah or Salt Lake for the first time. Is there like anything that you think that they need to go check out or experience? Any kind of Kerri recommendations?
Oh my gosh, I have several. Depends on where they want to go. We just did the Narrows down in southern Utah, which you could just explore and hike up to Delicate Arch. You could do so many things in southern Utah. Here, when I have family and friends that come into town, I'll usually take them thinking if they just want a short introductory hike, we'll go up to Donut Falls.
Oh, it's a good hike.
It's a good hike.
It's a really good hike.
And it's pretty. There's a reward at the end, the waterfall. It's beautiful. So, I mean...
Just any of the local places.
Yeah, don't you think there's so many to choose
Oh, there is. I mean, and they're right in our own backyard.
Right.
I'm not really a big hiker, but once in a while it's nice to get out there or go camping and stuff. And I mean, we're so close to it. It's like we have the city, but then we have the outdoors, and that's why it's a great place to live, it really is. I always ask this. It's it was kind of a fun question to ask or a silly question in the beginning of doing this podcast. But, it's kind of neat to find out responses of, local eating spots. There's so many great places to eat here in Salt Lake. Recommendations of your non-chain, local restaurants. Where do you enjoy?
We used to sometimes, this is another thing, we'll just bike and ride to a restaurant and then bike home.
Like in the city. Bike
in the city.
Yeah.
So, we've gone to Red Rock, but, there's a Mediterranean restaurant and all of a sudden I can't think of it. That's on Highland. That's,
well, and I know how it is. Sometimes you can't remember the name.
I can't remember the name.
I know,
and it's so good.
So
and
good.
I'm gonna be bummed that I didn't get to mention it. It's really good. And there was also, I'm horrible with names. Dang it.
No, you're fine.
I can't think of it. Give me a second and I'll try and think of it.
Oh, it's all good. Do you ever go out to any like the like Twilight concerts, or do you do any of that outdoor music stuff over the summer, or is that not really?
I've done that before. It's been a long time, especially since they moved it. I don't think I've been. Isn't it at Pioneer Park now?
Yeah, it's at Pioneer Park.
I've been when it was at the Gallivan Center, so it's been quite a while. I like that. I've gone to I like the Red Butte concert.
That's what I was going to ask you, if you ever make it up to the Red Butte concerts or any of the outdoor concerts.
David Gray is coming. I'm a big fan of David Gray. I like Brandi Carlile too, and
there you
she's
go.
coming. There's a good lineup this year.
I think that's going to about do it. I mean, I appreciate you taking some time and sitting down. I mean, anything else you want to add, or that maybe you want to mention, anything coming up in the news? I guess you don't know until it happens, I guess.
Yeah, we don't know until it happens. But no, we, I think morning watchers are really loyal, and I love our morning watchers.
And again,
they've been really good to us.
The times people can find you.
Mm-hmm. So our morning show, Good Day Utah, runs from 4:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then 11, and then our noon show till 12:30. So 11 to 12:30.
Okay, and people, you're on Twitter. I know that.
I'm on Twitter.
How can people find
Facebook.
you on Twitter?
It's just Kerri Cronk.
Okay.
And then same with Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. So I try and do it all.
Yeah. What do you think of social media? I mean, kind of back to that original question of consuming the news. I mean, are you big into all of that social media? Boy,
I went through a Facebook phase where, when I first got on Facebook and thought it was wonderful. And, like I said, I'm kind of moved over. I probably use Instagram more than anything else right now. I just like posting pictures and not having to put big explanations or I'm drinking a glass of water right now.
Yeah. Well, it's not so, like, Facebook is just so personal, I think. Well, I guess photos are pretty personal though too, but.
Photos are personal, but Facebook got to be too much for me. I mean, I'm still on it and I still post things. I just don't do as much as I used to. It doesn't look like it's going anywhere, so it's here to stay. So I guess you have to embrace it.
Yeah, you have to be on there, but I think people, it gets a bit addicting.
It gets a bit addicting.
Yeah, and you have to pull yourself away from it. Somebody just showed me a video about, how we get, so consumed with all of that instead of day-to-day life.
Face to face.
Yeah,
is
face
true.
to face.
I agree.
And,
I think my kids too. I watch and the problem these days is, when I was growing up, if someone wanted to talk to me, they had to call my house, and sometimes they get my mom or my dad, and for sure boys, if they couldn't bypass my parents because it was our house phone. That's all you had. And nowadays, my kids have cell phones and anyone can get a hold of them. And I feel sometimes that they're also saying things on their cell phones that they might not say in person because it's so much easier to just text a message, and, so I have concerns as a parent. That's a whole nother subject, I'm sure. But at the same time, it's nice knowing where my kids are all the time. It's nice to be able, to get a hold of anybody. And like you said, the immediacy of knowing what's going on in the world. I mean, there's nothing faster, but hopefully it doesn't replace face-to-face communication, right?
Well, exactly. Now, with Fox, can you watch the news online at all live?
You can. We do. We stream online.
Okay, so you do stream it online. What is the website? Fox 13 Now?
Fox13now.com.
Okay, Fox13now.com. And I try to get all the links in the podcast episode show notes. Again, if you don't know where Fox 13, who doesn't know where the website is, I guess, if you live in Utah, right?
You can find it.
You can find it. All right. Thank you so much, Kerri, for coming over to my apartment, sitting down and chatting. Had a great conversation with her. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I'd love to know your thoughts on this episode or any of the other episodes of I Am Salt Lake. You can drop me an email at iamsaltlake@gmail.com. You could tweet at me at iamsaltlake, or better yet, call up that voicemail line, 385-202-5926. I'd love to know what you guys are thinking about the podcast. There's actually a few recent iTunes reviews. I haven't read any iTunes reviews for a little while. Been getting some great iTunes reviews, and I just wanted to read those for you guys here really quickly. Recent review from Weezer 0088. He writes, "Always a treat to listen. Great podcast. I love everything about this podcast. The interviews are great. There's a huge variety of topics and people you get to learn about. I would recommend this podcast to anyone who wants to start their Monday off right." Thank you so much, Weezer 0088, for that review on iTunes. Much appreciated. I couldn't agree with you more. Start off your week right with the I Am Salt Lake podcast. Also, another review. It's a little older. I haven't had an opportunity to read this one on the podcast yet. It comes from Lucky SVSS. He writes, "Great podcast and great host. Makes me proud to live in SLC. The interview with Kevin Kirk from the Heavy Metal Shop was one of my favorites." I couldn't agree with you more, Lucky. I loved that conversation I had with Kevin Kirk. I was really stoked to sit down with him. You can go back and listen to episode 66, I believe it is, that I talked to Kevin Kirk from the Heavy Metal Shop. I'm here usually once a week. This week, I know I'm going to be playing another episode. It's a Crucial Fest music sampler. Jerem's going to join me on that episode. We're going to play a bunch of music from Crucial Fest bands that are going to be coming. That's the first weekend of June. You can find out more about Crucial Fest at crucialfest.com. You can get wristbands right there online. Get them early because ticket prices are going to go up after the end of May. It's $30 for the wristband. You can't beat it. Great lineup of bands that are going to be playing Crucial Fest. And I'm actually going to be emceeing one of the Crucial Fest events. I believe it's going to be the Saturday event at the Shred Shed. So you're going to want to make sure to come out to that one and see me in between bands as I keep you guys entertained. Again, that's crucialfest.com. Grab your wristbands early. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the episode, Lyft is in town. Use them to get around Salt Lake City. It's a really fun way to do it, to get around town, get around Salt Lake City. Just download that app, search for Lyft, Lyft, in your app store. Again, use that code CHRIS35819. That's going to get you $25 off of your first ride. Make sure you redeem that before your first ride. So enter that in before you take your first Lyft ride, and you get $25 off of your first ride. I'm going to end this episode playing one of my favorite songs by a band called Parlor Hawk. If you guys aren't familiar with them, they're from Utah County, a great band. The name of the song is called Home. Again, you can find all of the links on the show notes for this episode 145 at iamsaltlake.com/145. Search for me on Facebook, I Am Salt Lake. Keep up to date on everything going on around here in Salt Lake City. Pretty much summertime. Summertime is here. Almost here, I guess, and a lot of really great events coming up. I know they just announced the Twilight Concert Series. Great lineup of bands playing that. Hopefully I see you guys there. Hopefully I see you guys out and about and around Salt Lake City. Anyways, this is Parlor Hawk and Home. Thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Love is the only thing that keeps you dry, and the darker it gets, the harder you try. But when the only one you've ever loved is gone away, love will not protect you then. See, you left your home a long way from here. When your tears are the only thing that kiss your face, no one was with you when you lost your way. But may I always be with you till the end of all the pain you're fighting. Jesse was a friend of mine, but I moved away, and I didn't have time to be the friend he needed then. And love will not protect you when you left your home a long way from here. When your tears are the only thing that kiss your face, no one was with you when you lost your way. But may I always be with you till the end